Sanders, you want to take it away? Kind of give your thoughts. I know you're not talking just about state baseball. We're talking about winners and losers in the portal. But
so first, I want to hit up state baseball, talk about what starting lineup could look like, starting rotations could look like. I'll also do some other winners and losers. I've got 2 winners and 1 loser from around the country concerning baseball. So that'll be pretty fun. But yeah, so me and Tucker were texting earlier this afternoon about baseball starting lineups and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and give my projected what I would do, or not what I would do because I don't know the team as well as the coaches do, but what I would like to see happen. And then Tucker will kind of give his and we'll compare. So next year, the starting lineup, I would love to see. The issue is our outfield. Our outfield is absolutely stacked. So let me just read you some of the guys we have in that outfield that we got to figure out what we want to do. So we have Garrick Fry, Bryce Chance, Reed Stallman, Vitus Valencius, Aiden Teal, James Nunnally, and Blake Bevis. So that's 7 guys who could all start at outfield. Some of them could play other positions. I believe Garrick and Blake could both play first base, which we'll need to figure out and replace because Hunter Hines graduated. So if I would like to see a starting lineup, Garrick Fry, I think if he does not go to the MLB, which he is draft eligible, I'm awaiting next Sunday night very eagerly, but Garrick Fry has to lead off in my opinion. The dude hit 340 last year, and he hit 8 home runs, but he did not start seeing playing time until halfway through the season. That's when he started leading off. So he kind of took over halfway through the season and just constantly improved throughout that second half of the season. It hit 8 home runs. Multiple of them were like first pitch or first at bat. And there is not a better way to start a game than like your leadoff dude goes out there and just hits one out of the park. And you're like great. Like now we've got our second best hitter up. We're up 1-0 with no outs. Like that's a good feeling. Tucker, do you have thoughts? Leadoff, I'm going to assume you have Garrick just because he did so well last year, but maybe you've got a different guy up there.
So I don't have Garrick just because I don't think he's going to be here next year.
Okay.
But if he was here, would you have him batting leadoff?
Yeah, I probably would. It would either be him or Aiden Teal.
Okay.
Which is who I have there. And both of those guys are draft risks. So it could be a situation where if you just can get one of them here to lead off, then you take it.
Yeah.
Teal would be a center fielder, though, I think, for this team. Whereas Fry, you're probably looking at left field, maybe first base. Maybe second base, but he'd have to put a lot of work in there. It was pretty ugly earlier this year.
I've got him at first, and then Gatlin playing at second because while Gatlin was not like a power hitter, he hit over 300, and his defense was really good. So I would leave Gatlin at second, but continue.
I have a different player at second, but we can get to that at the end because he's towards the bottom of my lineup.
Okay.
But yeah, I agree. If Garrick is here, he has to be in the lineup. Like, yeah, I know he's struggled defensively, but his bat is too good. You've got to find a way to get him in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would definitely bat Garrick leadoff if he's here as well. I think that's the move.
Aiden Teal, let me pull up. I had his stats. He hit 317 last year with 7 home runs, so a pretty comparable home run count to Garrick. He did field 1,000%. Or is that how you would say?
Yeah,
that?
he didn't make an error.
Yeah, so
which
0 errors is probably the better way to say that.
Is an imperfect way to read defense, but you don't hate to see that.
Yeah, no, I would much rather have him with 0 errors than more than that. How would you? We don't have to get into how to interpret defense.
Well, if he has terrible range and he can't get to anything, like it doesn't matter.
Not errors, I guess technically.
But if he's playing center field, I'm gonna imagine he doesn't have terrible range, and it's probably a good sign.
True. Go ahead, Tucker.
One other thing about Aiden Teal is I believe this was the first year he was a full-time position player. He came in as a pitcher and position player.
Really?
His older brother is Kyle Teal. I know a lot of State fans will probably remember him from the Virginia team that State played in 21 in the College World Series.
Played catcher
he plays for the White Sox now.
Okay.
Yes, I think so. I think he was that was his freshman year, so he was in the outfield, but then he moved to catcher the next year, something like that.
Cool.
But Aiden Teal is a straight center fielder at this point. From what I can tell.
Awesome.
I will say he spells Aiden in the non-Aura way. I like to see an AYD spelling of Aiden. I think it just looks cooler. So
yeah, those are those important things you look for.
That may be a worry for next season.
All
We
right.
can work to get that changed by the start of
True.
next season.
I think that's something y'all really should push for.
So we both have draft risk guys batting leadoff. Who do you have at second?
A
Or
guy
batting second,
that
I should say.
is technically a draft risk, I guess, but I expect to be here. That's Drew Wires, the shortstop
Okay.
from Bryant.
Yes, I also have him in my lineup. I've got him batting sixth. I actually, the minute it was announced that Drew Byers was coming here, Drew Wires?
I think it's a W, right?
Oh, I
Wires?
misspelled it on my graphic then. I got his name and the school he played at mixed up. So I put Drew Byers because I had the B for Bryant in my head.
Played at Ryant.
Anyway, so I do have him batting sixth. He hit 407 last year at Bryant. I'm really excited to have him on the team. The minute he announced he was coming here, I started trying to do some research and do some projections onto like how players who like transfer up from smaller conferences to larger conferences do. And it's pretty interesting if you look at like the top 10 guys who transferred from small conference to a P4 conference, so Big 10, ACC, Big 12, SEC, their batting average dropped by 80 points. The top 10 guys, and then like the bottom guys, they all improved. So I do expect Byers to hit around like 320, probably 330.
Which you'll take any day of the week.
Absolutely, we'll take that. It's just, it's a little deceiving to see that the 407. You're like, oh my gosh, this dude's an absolute stud, and he is, and hopefully will be, but he will not be putting up Charlie Condon numbers, I don't think, here.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think that Drew Wires is like the second best hitter or anything.
Yeah.
I really wanted to put Ace Reese in the 2-hole.
Really?
And I just couldn't get myself to have two lefties in my 1-2, which is probably a very old school non-analytics way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, if he's your best hitter, I would personally bat him second. But
Yeah, I agree. If Garrett Fry is here and I have a switch hitter, then it's no question Ace Reese is hitting second for me.
sure.
I like doing the left-right because in college baseball, where you can change a pitcher every at bat, you're kind of cycling through pitchers a lot
Sure.
more. Like if they're going to bring in a lefty to face Aiden Teal, then I have Drew Wires right there behind him batting righty.
Makes sense.
That you have to worry about, who has power.
Cool. Yeah, I've got Teal at second. So we're both pretty high on him and expect him to do well. I'll go ahead and flip it around since we already talked about him and move on to the 3-hole. I have Noah Sullivan. Sullivan definitely was hitting insane. I think he was hitting like 350 or 400 through non-conference play. I mean, it was absolutely insane. Slowed down a little bit into conference play, but did finish hitting 342, and I believe finished third on the team in home runs behind Reese and Hines.
Sounds right. Yes.
Yeah, he's definitely in there. He was a good hitter, a good home run hitter on a team that set the school record for home runs. So I have him at the 3-hole just because of that high batting average, because I'm clearing the way for Ace Reese at fourth. But we can go ahead and talk about your 3 guy.
Okay. Yeah. So I have the same 3 and 4 as you, just flipped around. I have Ace Reese third, Noah Sullivan fourth.
Yeah.
Like we talked about a second ago, I would much rather have Ace Reese batting second, but I think Noah Sullivan is a guy that if he's hitting fourth, and I have any of the guys that we've talked about so far in those first 3, then it's going to be really hard for him not to come to the plate with a guy on base in that first inning.
Yeah.
And probably more than anyone else on this team, he's a guy that I trust to like put a professional at bat together and do a job if I need him to.
Absolutely.
It feels like I don't think he ever had. I mean, I'm sure he probably did, but it felt like he never just saw 3 pitches, struck out, and went back to the dugout. Like he was always at least battling. He seemed like a 25-year-old, 26-year-old guy out there playing college baseball against 19-year-olds. It just seemed like he knew what he was doing more than everyone else.
Yeah.
That's why I have him fourth. And then Ace Reese third, because he's your best player, he's your best hitter. You need to find a balance between getting him as many at-bats as possible and giving him as many important at-bats as possible.
Right.
We can have an Ace Reese conversation on another day, but I think you could argue that he's the most talented player State's had since Brent Rooker or something. But
wow. I mean, I don't remember. I remember watching those teams play, but I could not tell you how talented those guys were because they were just playing baseball, and I was like 12, 13. So I was just like, oh, they're good at baseball. But I could definitely see that being the case. But like you said, we can save that conversation for another time. We've got a long summer still ahead of us, and then a long off season in the fall and spring before we get to baseball in February. But so you've got Noah Sullivan and Ace Reese batting opposite of mine. Yep, 3 and 4. Reese at 3, Sullivan at 4. I feel like this bottom half of the lineup is where things could be very different. Honestly, just because who we have playing outfield, who we have going to. I kind of am under the assumption that we might be able to return all of our position players. I think that's right. I think I'm saying that right. Yeah. I could see Fry coming back, Teal coming back. I'm just not super worried about losing those guys just because we are in a different era of baseball where guys can make so much money in college baseball, and then we're also one of the premier programs in college baseball where we have that working for us as well. So that's kind of why I give every player almost the benefit of the doubt that they'll be coming back. But what do you have this bottom half of the lineup after the top 4 guys?
Okay. Do you want me to just run through it? And then
Yeah,
we can
do
talk
that.
about it, or? Okay. So batting 5th, I would almost put this guy. I feel like the break in the lineup comes after 5th instead of 4th. 5th, I have Kevin Maluski, the catcher from Seton Hall. Then 6th, I have James Nunnally in right field. 7th, I just have whoever's playing first base. Right now I put Blake Beavis in there, but I could see Fry being playing first, Vitas Savolinkis playing first, a bunch of different guys. 8, I alluded to this earlier, but I have Ryder Woodson batting 8 and playing second base. And then in left field, I have Bryce Chance batting 9th.
Yeah, so I honestly, I'm going to start with Bryce Chance just because he's a guy, this is his, I believe, 5th year here, but it'll be his 4th year playing. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, he redshirted his first year.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So I want to lead off with Bryce Chance. I've got him batting 8, so we both have him and playing left field. We both have him in the lineup. I think he's like one of probably the 2 guys like that are going to play that should start in the outfield. Teal because of his talent, and then Bryce Chance because of his experience. He is probably, he's the longest tenured player on the roster, I believe, or he definitely is if he's going into his 5th year. So he's one of those guys.
Stone Simmons is gone, so
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So I think he's one of those guys that just has to start because of his experience and also because of how he finished this season. Just super collected in SEC play, long hitting streaks, high, had a very high batting average in that, I think, second half of SEC play. So it was just really cool getting to see him kind of take it to another level that we hadn't really seen from him against some of the best competition in the country. So Bryce Chance, I think, has to start. I've also got Kaluski. I spelled his name wrong. I might have to take this graphic down.
You've cooked.
I spelled too many players' names wrong. I was trying to make all this. We audibled this show last night at 11:30. It was going to be an AFC South Division preview. Audibled it to Baseball Transfer Portal, and so I was doing all this prep work right after church at like 12:45. So yeah, I'm gonna take that down because I'm gonna leave it up. It's fine. I apologize for the bad spelling, but yeah, I've got Maluski up there as well. I'm really excited to see what he does because as State has struggled at catcher since, I guess, Logan Tanner left. But we had Luke Hancock, and then we had Johnny Long, Ross Highfield, Joe Powell. Joe Powell is probably the best guy out of that group, and I'm excited to see maybe another tier above that at catcher behind the plate. So that's really exciting. Who was okay, hold on. I got to pull it back up. You said Ryder Woodson. I don't remember him standing out as like, I know I've been keep track with all of our transfers in, so like I definitely heard about him, but I don't remember being like, oh, this is a guy that's going to take a starting job.
Yeah, for sure. I have a quick note on Chance and Maluski first.
Do it.
If that's all right. So Bryce Chance, I put him in here. I think, I'll be honest, for years I've been trying to just push Bryce Chance out of this lineup, and he will not die. He just keeps coming back. So even though there are several guys that I don't have starting that I am confident are more talented than Bryce Chance, I just assume at this point that somehow he's going to find his way. We're going to look up in late March, early April, and be like, oh, there's Bryce Chance in the lineup every single day, and you can't take him out. And then Maluski, I agree with you for the most part on catcher. I was a Johnny Long supporter. I think he did a lot of things that don't show up in the stat sheet. Like, his pitch framing was beautiful. And I think this might be something where I have to change my thinking from pro baseball to college, because the bar for pro catchers offensively is just so low that, like, a guy like Joe Powell that was hitting 280, 290, I was like, that's perfectly fine for my catcher. But in college baseball, you do probably need a little more than that, which I think Maluski will be able to give you.
Yeah.
Okay, coming back to Ryder. So Ryder Woodson was a freshman for NC State last year.
Okay.
And he didn't play a ton, but then got a lot of run in the regionals and was, I don't remember the exact stats. I want to say he had like 3 homers in the regionals at Auburn.
Okay, I do remember this. Yeah.
Yes. So I think he was brought in to be a middle infield starter. NC State was kind of counting on him to be a starter next year. I don't think he would necessarily leave a good baseball program to come to a great one unless he thought he was going to be starting somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether at shortstop or second. I think he can play third also, but that's kind of locked down in Mississippi State for next year.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why I have him hitting second.
Okay. Hitting 7th, you said?
Oh, hitting 8th, my bad.
8th,
Playing second.
Playing second.
Hitting,
okay, cool. I've also got Nunnally on the starting lineup. I think I actually don't have Bevis on the lineup because I've got Gehrig playing first, but it sounds like we agree about like some of the main pieces and kind of where guys will go in the lineup. Bryce will be starting near the bottom. Maluski will be starting near the bottom. I think we disagree a little bit about Byers, but he is going to be, I hope, good here. Also, so we can move on. That's our starting lineups. You want to do pitchers. So you're probably going to be able to do pitchers better than I can, just because I am not like I saw someone tweet their starting pitchers rotation the other day, and they had Ciari pitching midweek, which I kind of disagree with, but I'd love to hear what you think about what the pitching staff could look like.
Yeah. Oh, I'll start off on Ciari. I think Ciari is really interesting because he's kind of like Bryce Chance, where if you look at like talent, probably not the guy that you pencil into Friday night.
Right.
But every year I know he's going to throw strikes. He's dependable, and he's gotten better every year. So I don't have him in the rotation right now, but
really,
like we talked about with Chance, if we get into SEC play and he's starting on Sundays and giving you 6 innings of 3 runs every week, I'm not going to be shocked either. I think he showed some really good things towards the end of the year, but I don't want to get blinded by he was the perfect pitcher to go up against that Ole Miss lineup and just had the best game of his life.
Yeah.
So in my rotation, so Friday night I have Tomas Valinkis, the left-handed pitcher. I think he's up to like 98. He was on Team USA.
Yeah.
I think he came from Virginia to be the Friday night starter. Saturday I have Davion Hickson from Rice. He was their Friday night starter this year. He is a draft risk.
Yeah.
But I think right now he'll probably get to campus. And then I have Sunday starter and a closer written down. This could flip-flop, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I have Charlie Foster as the Sunday starter and Ryan McPherson as the closer.
Yeah.
I think long-term McPherson is probably more talented. But the way that Justin Parker used him this year seemed like he looked at Charlie Foster as more of a starter in 2024 than McPherson, but also that could change by the time we get to 2025. So I wouldn't be really shocked either way.
Yeah. It might be 2026, right?
Yeah, this would be for 2026.
Yeah.
I think whatever happens next year in 2027, you're going to have 3 juniors between Valinkis, Foster, and McPherson all starting, and it's going to be one of the best rotations, probably the best rotation in the country.
Yeah.
Assuming no transfers or injuries or whatever.
So I've got the same Friday and Saturday night guys as you, Valencius and Hickson, and then I have Cieri starting on Sunday just because. I mean, I think that he was the second. So you had Pico, who was clearly the best pitcher, and then Cieri, who was clearly the second best pitcher on, I think, last year's starting pitchers. And then who do you have? Did you say your midweek guy?
I didn't. I wouldn't. I feel like this staff that we put together is so deep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind doing the bullpen game every midweek.
Yeah.
You also have, if you need someone to eat innings, you have Noah Sullivan there, who you can just throw out throw 2 or 3 innings against Alcorn State and not worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lot of different options. If Jack Bauer were to somehow get to campus, he could start on midweeks, but you never know.
Yeah, so that's actually a perfect segue. So I was going to ask about, so we've got a pretty good freshman class coming in, a lot of draft risks. I wanted to talk specifically about 3 guys, Jack Bauer, Joseph Parker, and then Peter Mershon. So Bauer was a UVA commit. After we brought in O'Connor, he flipped from UVA to State. He's throwing in the low 100s on his fastball. He's a definite draft risk, but if he made it to campus, what kind of impact do you think we would see from him? Because we've seen elite freshmen start in college right away. I believe Kumar Rocker started his freshman year at Vandy. So it's not unheard of for uber talented freshmen to come in and start right away. Do you think Bauer could compete for a weekend spot, or are we looking most likely midweek and then weekend later on in his career?
I think he is probably, honestly, I'd put it 50-50 that he blows out his elbow the first fall he gets here. Just because it feels like he's a lefty that throws triple digits. It feels like that's inevitably going to happen at some point. If he were to be healthy by next spring and on campus, I feel like he starts as a guy out of the bullpen, maybe midweek, and you try to work him up to being a starter in postseason play because he's such a unicorn. With being a lefty that can throw triple digits, like there are a handful of those people on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So he would be, I think he'd be used in some way for sure. But just how you want to use him, how you want to protect him and keep him healthy would be the interesting thing.
Yeah. And if you could elevate him to a starter by postseason, because that's when that pitching depth at starter really matters, that could be really cool. Joseph Parker is another draft risk. I believe he's twin brothers with another state commit, shortstop, and then the other one is an outfielder. What do you think? So could he compete with Wires? I got that right that time.
It is
Drew
Wires
out of Bryant. Do you think that he could compete as a freshman for that starting shortstop spot if Wires can't make that adjustment to SEC play, or do you think that's another depth piece that will be down the road?
I'm going to be honest, I haven't thought about it any because there is a 0% chance he gets to Mississippi State.
Okay.
He's a top 10 pick. I think both him and his brother are going to go pro.
Okay, awesome.
I feel confident in that.
That is unfortunate. And then lastly, the last on my list, Peter Mershon, David Mershon's younger brother, is a catcher. And so I could see him getting some playing time just because right now catcher is probably it and shortstop are our shallowest positions as far as depth goes. So I could see him competing if he gets to campus. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think he could definitely get some playing time at catcher, probably like in a midweek, take some innings off of Maluski behind the plate.
Yeah.
But not necessarily a guy that we're going to be relying on for most of the season.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think the main question around him is when he announced his commitment, he used David Mershon's walk-up song and clips of that. Do you think there's a chance he reuses that walk-up song and kind of plays it up to give the fans what they want with the clapping over their heads? That's kind of my big question about him. What do you think?
I think if he's going to do that, he's got to grow the hair out too.
Okay.
Coming out of the helmet, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which would be really interesting to see with the catcher's mask. Like, does that just like pop out of the back of the catcher's mask too? I don't really know how that works.
Yeah. I told Jack, I said for him to pull that off, he has to be better because you can't use your older brother's walk-up song and then like not be better than him. But
I think there's a world where you can low-key suck and use it because like you just
I
like
hope that's
know
not
you're
the-
like firmly stuck in your older brother's shadow,
I
but
hope
like
that's
that's
not
just
the
like your
case.
gimmick.
yeah, I hope that is not the case. I hope that he is better. And also, as younger brothers often are, there's a good chance he is better. So that's
Sure.
that's pretty exciting. That's kind of all the stuff I want to talk about Mississippi State baseball. Go ahead?
Well, I just wanted to give a congratulations to Bryce Chance, who got married yesterday.
Oh,
So shout out to him. That's a big day for him. Yeah, I was just scrolling Twitter while y'all were talking because I don't have any input. I'm not a state guy, and that popped up.
that's awesome.
I do think his wife is just about as tall as him. I mean, short king Bryce Chance.
That is tough.
That doesn't seem like it'd be very hard after watching him on the field. for a
No,
few
no.
years.
And I will say she probably was in heels. I don't know. So he probably has a couple inches on her.
Yeah.
But shout out short king Bryce Chance.
Yeah.
We can move on now.
Yeah. Any other state baseball stuff, Tucker?
I mentioned one more draft risk guy, Landon Harmon.
Okay.
Feel pretty good that he'll sign and go pro. But he is from somewhere near Starkville.
He's
I don't remember
from
what
New
school he
Albany.
goes to. Okay, yeah, so pretty close to Starkville.
Yeah, like North
Um,
Mississippi, so hour and a half.
Yeah. Right. I feel more confident that he'll go pro than Jack Bauer.
Okay.
So, but just another name to watch as if anyone takes the time to watch the MLB draft.
I will be
you shouldn't
watching.
take the time to watch anything but the first round.
That's what I'll be doing. Is I will be watching the first round. Fingers crossed that every pick is not a state commit or a state player.
I don't know. I feel like you get one guy every year that like gets signed or drafted in the third round, and the team just like throws as much money as possible at him.
Yeah.
Because
to
obviously
Georgia.
you have to go way over slot, but like they just sign cheap college guys everywhere else, and they just take a big swing.
Yeah.
State's probably not the biggest risk for that, considering, like you said, NIL and
Facilities.
facilities. Gonna be hard to steal someone from state, but you
It
never know.
is. I believe was that a Colton Ledbetter? Was he drafted not low, but like not like clear and obvious go to the pros?
I can't remember. I think it was Colton Ledbetter's last year of leverage, so it was pretty known that he was gone.
Okay.
Dakota Jordan last year and David Mershon were the ones that I remember, especially Dakota Jordan was drafted in like the fourth round, but then
Got way over slot.
I think, yeah, he got like first round money
Okay.
to go ahead and go pro because he had another year of leverage. Had he come back, he would have still had leverage this year to get a lot of money.
Yeah.
All
Makes
One
right.
team that I know will not be signing Jack Bauer is the Braves because he's represented by Scott Boras.
Yeah, that's a
Indianapolis.
big no for
Okay.
us. We probably will draft a pitcher, though. It's all we do. Even though we can't hit to save our lives and probably could use a talented position player. I would personally love if Jace Laviolette fell to us, which he very well may because his draft stock really dropped at A&M this past year. But if he fell to us and we took him, I'd be over the moon. But we're going to take a
I'm
pitcher.
just counting down the days until Tim Hires is fired. I need that man out of my life.
All right. I do want to. So we have someone who's active in the chat, which I really appreciate. So we're gonna talk about what he's saying. He said Noah Sullivan is in the draft. I don't know if I see that because
He says 50-50.
no, I thought he said is in the draft. Chance. Oh, okay. I see. I thought
saying
he was saying
he's
he's
50-50.
yeah. Chance and he are both 50%.
Everyone's in the draft.
Yes, he said Noah's. Well, actually, didn't we have a guy just announce he's coming back? Was it Ben Davis said he was taking his name out of the draft?
I don't know.
I think you can take your name out, but teams can still pick you.
Really?
Is how I understand the MLB draft. It might be different. I know the NBA is like you have to actually put your name
Correct.
in.
Yeah.
I don't think the MLB draft is like that because you see college football players drafted all the time. Like, if any team would like to draft me, they're
Your
free
draft,
to,
yeah,
by
you're
the way.
available. Call
Yeah.
his name.
Yeah.
I am available. Call my name.
I meant to fill out the paperwork to apply for the NFL draft after I graduated, and I forgot. So, He said, yeah, Noah Sullivan is in the draft. Chance and he are 50% that they. Oh, chances are 50% he comes back. I kept reading that as Bryce Chance. I'm sorry, Sven. But yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a pretty good chance he comes back. He just really seemed bought in to Mississippi State. Just the way he carried himself all season long, and then also, I don't know what the demand of a DH is in baseball when there are a lot of guys that can hit.
That does hurt his value, definitely.
Yeah,
a little
just
bit.
because he doesn't play defense. And then
right, and the right-handed hitter with no positional value. There's not a lot of. There's no. The word is escaping me. But, there's not a lot of room for those kind of guys.
Dude, that's hype.
In Major League Baseball.
Our Sven just apologized. Sorry, my English is bad. I'm a German State fan. Well, we appreciate you for tuning in. We are huge State fans, so if you ever this is the place to be for State sports. We hope so. We're glad you're here. He said we're missing the point. Coach O'Connor has options who to play. There are more than 9 guys who can start. Yeah,
which is so ideal because injuries are going to happen.
Absolutely,
people are going to play poorly or be in bad stretches.
Yeah. This is really exciting. It's the downside of, we were talking earlier about outfielder Tucker. It is the downside about recruiting so well and bringing so much talent is you're stuck with 7 guys who are I would love to have them start in my outfield.
It's the best problem to have.
You can't start all 7. He said he sees Sierra as a Saturday starter. He's been consistent since day 1 to the last inning in Tallahassee. And then he also said that Davis will be coming back. That's what Davis took his name out of the draft. I guess he could still be drafted, but I feel like
he basically said, "Do not draft
you're
me."
Yeah, that's probably what that is don't draft me.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because people will tell teams that all the time. It's don't draft me. I'm going to college. That's why you see a top high, say the Joseph Parker was his name.
Yeah.
If he wanted to go to school, he'd be telling teams don't draft me. And that's why a guy that would potentially go top 10 suddenly just doesn't get drafted because everyone knows he's going to school, so there's no point in drafting him.
Yep. Maybe he's telling them that behind the scenes. That's probably what's happening.
Draft pick, exactly. Huh?
I'm lying to myself and saying he's probably saying that behind the scenes. We just don't know about it.
Sure.
I will be watching the first round of the MLB draft. I'm kind of sad. We're going camping. We're leaving for camping on Sunday, but we'll get there. We'll drive halfway there Sunday. We're going to North Carolina and then get there on Monday. So I'll watch I'll watch Sunday night, and then Monday we'll be in the mountains. I won't have cell service, so I won't know for a week I won't have cell service.
I'll send you a carrier pigeon.
Yeah, all the guys, over those next couple of days, as guys sign their deals or announce that they're coming back, I won't be
that's
connected
tough.
to that.
That's
I'm
pretty
terrified.
tough.
So I'm gonna come out of the mountains a week later and be well,
here's what happened.
Here's the roster.
Yeah.
So
I miss the days of the 50-round MLB draft because people be getting drafted in the 45th round, and the people doing the coverage would be yeah, this is the first time I'm hearing this guy's name. Let me try and do some research real quick.
Yeah, I do not envy the people who have to talk about that for days on end.
Yeah.
However long the MLB draft
I have one more
is.
thing
Yep.
If anyone's watching the draft, so the way the MLB draft works, if I get this wrong, Jack, you can correct me.
Okay.
But teams have a bonus pool of money that they can give to players, and there's an amount slotted for each pick, and then all that together is the bonus pool money. Teams lose the amount of money for a pick if they don't sign that player in the first 10 rounds. I explained that terribly. Let me try again. If a team selects a player in the first 10 rounds and then doesn't sign that player, they lose the money for that player. So if you see someone drafted in the first 10 rounds,
they're really expecting to sign him.
Because they probably already agreed to terms with that guy.
Yep.
Yes. It's a
phone off the book.
It's a very rare scenario where they don't get drafted. That's correct. It's a thing like a Kumar Rocker type thing where, a physical came back bad. Or because I will say, while they don't get that money back, they'll get a compensatory pick the next year to kind of recoup some of the value.
Yeah.
Still very beneficial for them to sign the guy they drafted because the pick isn't as good. But yeah, it's almost a shoo-in if someone gets drafted on draft night that they're going to end up signing a deal.
Yeah, Sven said at the end, I'm tired of losing to mediocre teams. I think we all are, and I think that era is
that's why
over.
Lamonis got fired.
Yeah,
right?
that is why Lamonis got fired. I think that era is over. I've said this multiple times over the past couple weeks, and I will keep saying it until our first preseason ranking. I think State is going to be a top 5 to top 8, maybe top 5 preseason team.
I mean, most people have them in their Omaha 8. They're too early Omaha 8.
Yeah.
Um,
It's that talented a roster. I hope it shouldn't get picked apart too badly in the draft just because it's a pretty young roster as well.
and it's deep. You can afford a couple losses to the draft and
Yeah.
still.
But we'll see how that goes.